I hear your kid's good.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't present too much of an issue. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I can hear you okay now.
Is this better?
Whoa, way better.
Good. All right. My AirPods were connected. That was so strange. All right, we're good.
Oh, you're way better. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's way better now. All right.
Okay, cool.
So people are starting to file in. That was so weird. So we got about 54 people in here right now. We'll give it another couple minutes, and we'll jump in. Whew! Worried there for a second.
I know. Got a little sketchy.
A little sketchy. Well, yeah, man. So pumped for tonight. This is going to be good. I get to show off. So we, Peter James Glenn, a Cape Cod artist, put together a pretty sweet hoodie for us. Hot off the press today. Sweet. So I know people have been waiting on it, and they'll be hitting the mail this weekend.
That's awesome.
And I have like 70 hoodies to package up and ship, so we'll be getting those out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Is it like a marshy area?
Yeah, it's like a night estuary. Like, I don't even see it.
Yeah. And he's got a fish on.
Got a fish on. And then we'll also, we're going to be doing I haven't told anybody yet, but we're going to be doing a sun crew with the same artwork for the summertime. So it'll be cool.
Oh, cool.
All right, well, let me kick off a few things before we get going, Ben. Thanks everybody for joining tonight. I'm Mark with South Shore Flycasters. Got Ben Whalley tonight, the master of beast and hollow flies. Maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but Popovics pioneered, this man perfected. But yeah, before we get into his presentation, so things were a little quiet at the end of 2020 between Dan and I, like kind of getting stuff in the calendar. But if you go to our website right now, southshoreflycasters.com, and go to the events page, we've got a lot of awesome stuff lined up. Let me actually go through it because it's a growing list right now. But let's see. So next week we've got Jay Aylward. He's going to be doing Western Mass trout fly tying demo. That's Wednesday the 10th. The 17th, Vince Batista. He's going to be doing traditional saltwater flies demo. On March 24th, we've got Abby Schuster. She's going to be doing fly fishing Martha's Vineyard. That's a presentation, not a tying demo. March 31st, we have Joe Cordiero welcoming him back. He's going to be doing a presentation he calls Back to Basics. It's for essentially saltwater fly anglers looking to fish estuaries and beaches and so forth. So good for novices and even folks that have been doing it for a while. We're going to have in April, we've got 2 casting clinics. We're going to do a 2-hand fly casting clinic, spay casting clinic with John Bellata. We're going to welcome him back. It's the second time he's doing that. So you can register on our website there. The big news is Mark Sadati is going to be coming up. He's going to be doing 2 casting clinics, 1 beginner, 1 intermediate advanced. If those sell out, he's welcoming to come back another day. So there could be up to 40 spots for him when he's up here. Chris Corcorda, April 14th, is going to be doing flats fishing for stripers. And then a personal favorite, we're going to be doing our striper season kickoff with Captain Brian Coombs in middle of May. So lots of stuff going on, pretty exciting. So before we dive in, if you guys haven't been on the Zoom webinar before, a couple things to note. I'm going to be the moderator. We've got the chat and the Q&A boxes at the bottom of your screen. If you want to engage those, it'll allow you to communicate while we're during the presentation. So the chat box, just kind of banter, whatever you guys want to say, goof off. If you have questions, please load them in the Q&A, and I'll kind of selectively take questions and and pose them to Ben as he's going along. We'll keep him focused, and I'll just be the moderator. And then we'll have more time for questions at the end. But I convinced Ben to do one thing tonight, which was to give away the flies he's going to tie. So what we'll do is we'll do some random numbers of attendees. Cheers. And yeah, so we'll give away the flies at the end of the night. Without further ado, I think I've covered everything I can. Why don't you introduce yourself? Give a little background as to where you live, your fishing, how it's all evolved over the years, and kind of how you got to where you are today, and then dive in.
Sure. So I'm Ben Whalley. Most people mispronounce it as Whaley, but it is what it is. So I removed a couple letters on my Instagram handle to prevent that. But I was born in PA, moved to Florida, lived in South Florida a little bit while growing up. And then my family moved down to Brazil. My dad introduced me to fly fishing at an early age. I got the bug at 3 and never lost it. I'm consumed by fishing, which is a good thing. I suppose there's worse vices out there. I moved from Brazil to Maine back in 2003 and ended up sticking around going to UMaine. Now I'm situated in southern Maine, not too far outside of Portland. And our fishery is rebounding. We're starting to, the whole reason I've gotten into tying bigger stuff, especially the last couple of years, is pogies are returning to our waters, which before there was no use of throwing these big baits except during the herring run for a couple weeks out of the year. So with them coming back, it's changed the game up here. I love the flats, and I've fished the flats for years, and you can still get nice fish on the flats, but it's definitely pulled a lot of the bigger fish that used to hold on the flats out to the pogie schools. It's a lot different up here in comparison to like down in Mass. We just don't have the number of stripers up here. I think we feel the hurt amplified by the whole species teetering on an edge. I think when you start getting down to their core, you don't see the difference in the decline as much as you do on the outskirts where we are. So it's real when normally you can get into decent fish. The last couple of years it's been good, like I said, with the bait coming back. So it's a great fishery. We have it all, really. We have flats, we have ledges, we have estuaries, and it keeps us busy, lack of sleep during the season. So
I hear that.
Yeah. So it's and then I got into bucktail a while back, and I don't know, there's nothing that compares to bucktail, and and I hope what I can convey today, if everybody leaves with just one thing, it's a success for me. But the big thing, I think, is a somewhat misconception when it comes to tying these big flies, whether it's hollow flies or beast flies, that you need like these crazy long bucktails, and no one can find them except Bob Popovics, who has a drawer full of them, and that's about it. And it's true, those ones are tricky to find, but I've kind of implemented a couple new ways of getting around that, being able to use shitty bucktail in combination with some synthetics in order to get the same, in this case, a bulkhead style head on flies with bucktail, but you're accomplishing the taper that normally you need super long bucktail to accomplish. So It's nothing new. I'll tell anybody, I don't really think anybody's inventing anything new these days. We're tweaking and improving upon previous stuff, which I love to do. There are a few new things, but by and large, nothing I'm going to show tonight is my invention. I've just kind of taken some steelhead fly tying tactics that I picked up as far as composite loops that Jerry French really got into, and then paired it with bucktail brushes that the muskie world were kind of experimenting with, and threw them together in a way that the bucktail brush, sure, you can do them, but you're stuck turning, same with any brush, unless you match the length of whatever brush you have to your fly, it's not gonna fit in right.
Right.
So by doing it in place on a loop, you can really create that seamless taper, which is fun.
So is there any subject matter that's off limits tonight or taboo that you won't be willing to share, or like, are you pretty open book?
I'm pretty open.
All right.
Or I'll give an elusive answer.
Because I might have to ask some hard questions, so I just want to know what to expect.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Well, you want to dive in? Do you want to show us what you're going to start off with?
Yeah, hold on. This is
and Ben, the video is still a little, like, the larger video for some reason is still delayed.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I think it'll be okay once you start tying, but we'll see what happens.
All right. So you guys can still see me up here.
Yep.
Show that I'm not doing a switcheroo or something. So this is the first one we're going to tackle, and so this one is, I chose pretty simple patterns, non-complex patterns. Mostly I wanted to show you guys kind of the bulk that traditionally I like getting using just bucktail and such, with I guess nowadays it's a reverse bulkhead hollow fly. So normally a bulkhead, you end up in the front, you end up tying them in like you would a deceiver, so not hollow style. And when you cinch down, it flares them open this way.
Right.
So instead, I'm doing essentially a hollow tie and creating taper that way. So I'll show you guys that. And then secondly, we'll get into the topic that always seems to be of interest when I show people. And this will be, there we go. This will be the composite loop head. So really the fly itself isn't all that complex, but you can pair this with beast flies, you can pair it with anything to create that dense head to kick the tails out, to create that the hydraulic effect, So
Yep.
They explore this if you find it something you want to look into further, because it's endless. It's really, you can put any material in really, and it's quick, and you can use your crappy bucktail and the world is your oyster, So let's get into the first one then, I suppose.
Let's do it. While you're getting set up, someone asked if you sell your flies.
I do. I tend to run a really long wait list these days. Just trying to keep up is tricky with a toddler and full-time job and stuff. And then especially during fishing season, I'm still at the vise, but most of it's experimenting, tweaking patterns. I get some flies out, but so I do. It's a balance though for me, because I don't do this full time, and I don't think I want to, even if I could. So it's a passion of mine, and I do. It's I try to balance though the wait list to actually accepting them. So I'll shut down orders for a period of time and then reintroduce. I'm looking at a couple other models as far as maybe moving away from custom orders per se and dropping a select amount randomly. But I don't know. I'm working through that. But yes, I do sell them.
I'll be your production tire if you teach me.
I need to get some sweatshop kids, not kids. Sweat. So I think I shared the list of materials that I'm using if you guys want to follow along. It's pretty.
I didn't do a good job of sharing that. Let me see if I'll send it out afterward to everybody.
If we're using a number 2-aught SA 280 minnow, hook, white bucktail, white ostrich. You can use Foxy brush or you don't. I like how it adds a little more bulk. And then that's it. So that's the first fly. So if you have bucktail and you have hooks, and if you don't have ostrich, supplement or just use bucktail. Doesn't matter.
I'm going to post it into the chat so people can see it. I apologize for not sending that.
Oh, no worries. Well, I'm not the one that should say that.
Everybody else can swear at me later.
But yeah, any questions, fire away.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep an eye out.
So I found I really am not a huge fan of ostrich and flies. I just find they foul a lot and tangle. So I really don't fish many patterns with ostrich. This one though, this one's really proven its weight in the past handful of seasons. And I particularly like ones that aren't like, I don't know if there's any, you can kind of see at the bottom of this one, they're just kind of fat and either busted off or just wide webby ones. I personally like these ones.
Can you use the other, use the other camera. Thank you.
So these ones like are super narrow at the tips.
Yeah.
But I like that. So I would tie exclusively with mono if I could. It takes time to get used to it. And it has its limitations. Like with other fly, I can't do composite loops with monofilament.
Yeah.
But it just grants me the, I don't know, surgical ability. I think I mentioned to someone, one of my big pet peeves with my flies is keeping the head super clean, and mono just grants you that ability to really keep it super clean. So I'm taking like a pencil's worth of roughly. So I'm going to put that down for a second. Grab some bucktail, and really the bucktail I'm using tonight is, to prove a point, it's like 3.5 inches. It's not by any means big. So take a small clump. I mean, the key with all of these flies is sparseness, truly, to the point where it feels wrong. Like similar, I suppose, to with flat wings, you're counting specific fibers. It's not quite, crap, I just blew ostrich everywhere.
So are you just kind of cutting as you go, or are you actually laying out each individual clump to tie in like prior to?
I
cut and go.
I am not necessarily a production tire, so I end up grabbing a bucktail and just cutting as I go.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what sent me down this whole path of exploring, because bucktails are hard to come by. And especially, you know, when I first started tying hollows and beast flies, I loved these type fibers, even though,
Yeah.
you know, it's not really ideal, but super crinkly and soft. And they're extremely hard to find, like super, super hard to find. So I ended up getting it in my head, this focus, probably 2 straight years of tying with any bucktail I could find, whether it's crappy hollow, crappy, you know, shortness can get to you on occasion. So like a 3-inch tail really limits you as to what you're going to tie. But being able to learn how to tie with different types of tails, you know, and that comes with experience, but being able to do that is a game changer, because then you're not limited to having to have pristine bucktail, you know. And
that's a really cool point, man. I used to be pretty into skiing, and lived in Jackson Hole, and Doug Coombs was like, I don't know if anybody's heard of him. If you're a skier, you probably would. I mean, he's like one of the most badass skiers of all times. And he had this saying, there's no such thing as shitty ski days, only shitty skiers. And so I think that's like kind of the same thing, right? It's like,
yep,
a good tire can make shitty materials work if you get good enough, you know. I think there's some truth to that. And I appreciate it because
fun to tie with.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's been a big blocker for me, is just, you know, the access to, you know, naturals that, you know, you think can, you know, do the magic for you.
Yeah. So I ended up putting it right on top, doing 2 wraps around it. So it's loose. I could literally let go and pull them out right now if I wanted to. And really what I'm going to do is just use your fingernail and work them around pretty much 360. Be careful not to like overlap. And, you know, if you cinch down, for instance, sometimes you'll make it roll over. But putting that layer of bucktail down first kind of keeps it from, similar to using like the pillow fluff that flatwing guys use to keep feathers on top. I always try to lay a small layer of bucktail down on top. Just
does that help with anti-fouling? I mean, I do that a lot, and I'll use the tips of the bucktail. What part of the bucktail are you using for that? Does it matter to you?
Honestly, no. It's hidden for the most part with feathers. So I suppose it prevents it somewhat. It's more for me the function of giving it something to bite down to.
Got it. So you're not even trying to get the bucktail 360 around the shank. Then it's just loading it right on top.
Yeah, the first one, when you cinch down, it'll go around slightly, but yeah, that first one, not necessarily. And then the second one, so this one, you can see is shorter than that first one, right? So this one's an inch shorter. You can vary that taper. And this one is a little less than the first, but you're okay going with the same amount. And then this one, we're gonna tie in hollow. So you're gonna take it and you can cut the ends off so they're nice and pretty. Honestly, I end up just leaving them, and if I'll lay it down over where I just did slightly, so like 1/8 of an inch it's laying over. You don't want to put it so it crushes the ostrich, but lay it over top, and then again take 2 wraps, and you can see when you pull down, see how it flares out, that bucktail on top.
Yeah.
So that was 2, and really you can pull on it if you keep tension on it. So again, use your nail and just kind of work it all around.
So one question was about how much ostrich you're using.
Yeah.
I know if people aren't used to the sort of nomenclature, a lot of fly tires will use a pencil as example of like a diameter, right? And so you basically said that was a pencil's worth.
There's probably 20 of these narrow ones. If you have the fluffy ones, those ones are just, I mean, more volume, right? So if I were to use these, for instance, you can see how they're just, they don't compress necessarily the way these ones do. It's almost like long marabou versus short marabou. The longer one, yeah, tends to flare out more. I don't know if that answered the question. So you want it 360, right? I apologize. Well, I don't apologize, but you may be hearing a toddler because it's bedtime. So I tend to take your pen or whatever you're using and literally just kind of pop it back a couple times.
Yeah.
And it gives you the ability to kind of look head on, even if you have it perfectly distributed around the hook. Sometimes when you push it back, it doesn't distribute. Like you can kind of see here, there's a gap right here, even though the bucktail are there. And it's more just how it's laying either back, you know, depending how you distributed it, whether if it's not straight. So you can pull them around. And I think that's the biggest moral to bucktail is you got to manhandle this shit.
Yeah.
Right. So once you have that, take a couple more reps. And the biggest takeaway for hollow ties, I think, that it's not a hidden secret, but for me, the game changer is making sure your last tie is at the front of this pack and maintaining that it's 100% perpendicular to the hook shank. Because if that's slightly cocked when you go to push it back, you're going to deal with that weird flare effect that everybody starting out, including me, has, you know, when you go to build the dam up in front, because now your thread's like this and you're trying to build the dam flat over it, and it's, you know, you're not putting the same amount of pressure down on the bucktail 360. So it's a simple thing, but
I can attest to it because I went all in last year on hollows, and Ben, once I was having that very issue, and I asked Ben about it, and when he told me that, that was the game changer, man. It was a huge difference. So can I ask a couple of questions, because I'm really curious about a couple things. When you're cinching down the bucktail, not now, but when the initial tie-in, are you progressing the thread in any, like, are you necessarily progressing the thread from the back to the front of the hook, or is it not really matter until you've cinched down that very last, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, last
tie-in, whatever.
Yeah. So I end up doing the two or three initially, so you can spread it around, and then I normally will do probably 3 or 4, 5 backwards, and then I'll skip forward, not necessarily solid, but skip forward to the front of the pack and do 1 or 2 once I know the bucktails, once I look at it, just to reinforce it.
Hell yeah.
You know, the big thing too is, like right now, when you start building the dam up front, like it really is manhandling, and bucktail type matters, right? So there's some that is just a pain to deal with, right? It's you can do it, it's just not fun.
So the other thing that's I still like, I don't understand, and I'm watching it, is like how you're using mono to build a dam. It just seems so counterintuitive to me, just from a physics standpoint, but you're doing it and you obviously do it well. So it's just crazy to me to think that you can stack cylinders on top of each other.
Well,
I mean, it works.
So I personally think it stacks better than normal thread. It doesn't slip as much if you build it up. So you gotta go progressively up and then back a little and kind of minimize it. So you're almost like building stairs.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And-
It's like it's falling into the gaps as opposed to like creating
Yeah.
interest. Yeah, man, I never thought about it until right now. That's actually does make a lot of
Yeah, and
sense.
I mean, I don't even know if this works. If this works. You can add a little something if you want. I don't even know if my light works. Yeah,
Joe Azarelli asked if you can run through the hollow tie technique one more time. Joe, the Fleye's not done yet, Joe. I think he's gonna. So,
we'll do another one.
Just calm down. All right.
Simmer down now. All right, so you got that one. Now I'm gonna grab. This was cut pre, but you can take towards the front of your ostrich. You have these shorts that generally either you're tying small stuff or they're useless. So I end up taking those, and then now it's quick, but you can see the end of the flies here. These ones are tapered in about pretty much 3/8 of an inch past where your bucktail ended. So it creates like it's funny. Sometimes I'll get in the mode and I'll tie up a bunch of these and I'll forget this step. And I told him, like, why does that fly not have the taper I wanted? And it's totally because this just kind of, I don't know, a lot of it's optical illusion, I think. So I'm literally just grabbing a couple and then tying them in 360. It doesn't matter the exact orientation.
Daniel Vera brings up a great question around tension, especially when you're building the thread down. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I'll slow down for the next one.
Okay. See, Joe? It's not over yet.
Mowgli, quiet.
Problem with me is, like, as I drink more rye, I get like really sarcastic and make fun of people during this. So
That's good to know.
if I get out of sorts, just let me know. Tell me to pipe down.
All right, so those are just kind of tied in, slightly shorter, and you can kind of see your taper. It's a good kind of check. If you pull your fingers back, you should be able to, once you start your taper, see how they start falling out, bucktail feathers, till you hit the end. It's kind of a good counter check. Mowgli, unnecessary. All right, so I'll do it. Mowgli.
Why does that brush?
He hears the kiddo jumping upstairs. So I'm adding in, this is just some of the Foxy brush.
So is that a 3-inch brush?
That's what I was just thinking.
Oh, probably.
It looks about, yeah, it's 3. I'd say 3. They don't have a 2.5, do they?
They have 1.5 and 3.
That's a 3 then. So I'm just gonna do, that's 1 wrap, and just palmer it back, and then that's 2. So if you have really fine, like super soft bucktail, I don't even use that, to the point where I've had people ask me on some of my flies, like, are you using fox on the head? And most of the time it's just super soft bucktail, if I can find it. Because these shorter bucktails, I mean, most people don't want them.
Yeah.
And one thing I was thinking about the other day, if you're just getting into this, the key is to dig through all the bucktails at stores, no matter where you go. And regardless of if you need it, buy it if it's a good one.
Yeah.
But I thought of this with the whole COVID thing right now. And the reason I realize is because I tend to process quite a few of my own during the season, the deer season. And, you know, you end up deboning, curing them. And then I use borax quite a bit. And like today I went down and grabbed a couple and they still had it. Normally I'll clean them off, but this time I didn't. And I went to put a collar in, and I have the bad habit. So for you starting out, don't get in this habit. Grab a bowl with some water. Don't lick your fingers and then pull back on it, because borax in your mouth sucks. Took me like an hour to get it out of my mouth. All right. So
hey, another question about the bucktail. Are you kind of cleaning them out at all? Are you?
Yeah.
What?
Well, some bucktails are better than others.
For sure.
Some don't have any shorts really, which is nice. This one, for instance, it's short, but there really aren't any shorts, so it's very minimal clean out. Others, you'll get some with super long fibers, and it's generally the transition of early season bucktails to late season. So you start getting the length, but it hasn't filled in quite because it's not cold enough.
Do you have sort of like a tolerance? Like, for me, like I'll kind of just, like if I have a lot of shorter hair, like I'll kind of pinch towards the top and just hit the hell out of it, right? To get like, you know what I mean? Like, do you have like a tolerance that you like to work with in terms of the various lengths?
So
if that makes any sense. I don't know. Hopefully.
So for instance, I'll grab this right now.
Do you want to use the other camera just so we can see better, if it's possible?
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm a Zoom novice, guys.
That's what I'm here for.
I got all fancy though and got this cool camera though, which is kind of fun. So I literally just peeled back what I wanted.
Yep.
And the key, and doing classes in person can be frustrating, because the number one thing you need to do is clip it as close to the hide as possible.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen in most classes is you pass the tail around and it's just like, I'm cutting the tip the length I need or whatever,
Right.
So
yeah.
I pull it back. I'm just going to snip it as close as possible. Right.
Yep.
And then in this case, I'm going about halfway up. So it depends. So this one, like I said, there's some, but not a ton.
So you tolerate then that's a pretty, 50 to 100% kind of variance. And
so it depends. So for this fly, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to build up under bulk as I work forward.
Yep.
So if I were trying to stay lean, so like for instance, we'll get into the big boy. So for instance, on the tail of a beast fly, right? You end up doing it so friggin' sparse, and you try to, it's not super long, but you're talking 4.5 inches maybe.
Right.
And you're trying to make this as lean as possible, right? To the point where
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
like half a pencil.
It's wild.
So in that situation, when I'm going for the long, I'll pinch the tips and then pull out. For here though, I'm trying to build up that under bulk. So having some that are 3/4 of the length of the bucktail really isn't terrible for me, So it depends what you're trying to go for, I think, in what fly you're tying.
You know why you're good? You're good because I asked why, and you have a really good reason for it. It's not just
So I'm ashamed to admit this to most people, but I learned the hard way with bucktail, and I didn't buy the Master Bob's book early on. So I ended up fighting through and reinventing the wheel with a lot, which going back, I probably would have progressed quicker had I read his book. But on the other hand, I've thought through a lot of those things and learned them for myself. So on that hand, I don't know that I'd do it different, but I do feel bad at, I love his style, and his flies have influenced my tying so much. And I feel bad that I was a cheap for so long.
So a couple of quick questions, and this is a good one that I could attest to. How many bucktails has your dog eaten?
So I was on a good track. I have 2 dogs, a chocolate lab that's almost 13 and a 6-year-old yellow lab. The yellow lab has never gotten into any bucktails.
Is that because you're really like clean and you put it away, or just hasn't?
I never trained him with food, so he really doesn't know human food.
Okay.
He's known, just like my daughter. She knows not to come and play on dad's desk unless I'm with her. And
Yeah.
he's really good like that. Whereas we adopted her, and she's very stubborn, and she's got, I don't know what kind of breed, but some kind of tracking. I think she has some GSP in her, German short hair.
Okay.
So her nose is really good, and she's gotten into quite a few, including like 2 months ago. I guess I left one of my airtight bins partially cracked, and I came down one morning, and my wife and daughter were downstairs in the living room, and I look over, and Bella's sitting on the floor with a pile of colored bucktails, like 8 of them.
Yeah.
And she had eaten almost all of them, like 4 feet from them. And I'm like, are you just allowing this? They didn't see it apparently. So she ended up shitting a rainbow for literally a week. We got very lucky she didn't get impacted, but yeah, she's interesting. All right, so this is we'll do this one and one more, but I'll spend a little more time on this collar. So I'll slow it down and explain it a little better. So what we're gonna do, advance your thread about halfway in between. So it's literally probably an eye length behind your hook eye. If that makes sense. So keep your thread there. And then this is where we start building up that thread dam, right? We start building up that bulkhead. And the way I end up checking out taper oftentimes is, like I said, you can go like that and kind of see where the end of the last ones were, but we're tying it in reverse, right? So it's hard to tell. So I end up pinching it and just folding my hand back where I want it. And you can see, okay, that one's a little shorter than the previous. I want to go a little more. So pinch a little further up, hold it there, boom. So you can kind of see that transition. So now your hand is where it needs to be lengthwise pinched, and you literally can just drop it down. And I have all these butts, right? I have all these butt ends that normally with hollow flies you would snip off and tie in, but I'm trying to build up bulk. So what I'm doing, I'm gonna take these and literally slide them over, or you can do it and push them around. But when you're close enough to the eye hook, you can literally just slide it up over it and then pinch it down. So now they're in spot at the length I want.
Question, Ben. So going back to your tie-in points.
Yep.
You tied in the bucktail and the ostrich right at the bend.
Yep.
And then you said like 1/8 of an inch in front of that.
Yep.
For the second tying point. Then you did what did you do?
I did the foxy brush.
Well, then you did another ostrich, right?
So I did. So the steps were little bucktail, and then the ostrich for the tail over the bucktail. Mm-hmm. And then I did one bucktail collar, reverse.
That was like about an 1/8 inch, like still before the hook point, but maybe between the bend and the hook point.
Yeah. I'd say right around there, about a hook eye forward.
Okay.
And I had left the butt slightly long because I didn't feel like cutting them. And then in front of that hollow tie that I built the dam on, I put the foxy brush, just 2 turns of that. right? So that's short. That doesn't equal up to my full taper yet. But it's just kind of adding some bulk, because often, so it adds that the opposite of opaqueness, the like a solid color,
Right.
so you
Yeah.
can't see through it. And you can use fox, you can use marabou wraps kind of in the head are really cool too. It's more just a filler, right?
Right.
So do this trick, see where you want to have it, and so that's the length I want. So it's about 3/8 of an inch shorter than my previous bucktail tie-in. Okay. And I want the butt ends. So right now they're angled for some reason, but they're anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch. So I want them around 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to straighten these out. And then I'm going to literally try to get it right in the middle and push it kind of back over that hook eye. And then just hold it in place. So now it's pretty much all around. And I use this technique a lot. I don't know if you can see it, but in order to maintain tension throughout, I'll pull my thread up.
Pinch move.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up and then I'll pinch in the upright position. I'm pinching the thread. So now the tension's on it. And when I pull down, it goes right down through my fingers to the hook shank. If that makes sense.
I like the move about just plopping the butt ends over the hook eye, because if anybody's done this, they can probably attest to it. It's really challenging to stack all the bucktail on the top by the hook eye and then try to get a 360. It just ends up, that hook eye just ends up blocking it when you're trying to spin it.
It speeds it up slightly. So that one actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
But in a progression, you can add it to the top and just push it around, right? So you can see, look at this bulk now. You see all of those fibers sticking out. When I cinch down, they really flare out to create that denseness, right? So like I said, I did 2 wraps. That's how they're held right now. I like how it is. You can kind of pop it back to see exactly how it is. You can see there's kind of a hole right there.
Yep.
Whoa. So see how I pulled it right down?
Yeah.
You know, it does impact it. So I have it where I want it. I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, kind of backwards, and then I'll move right to the front. So that's on my last one right now. So that's right behind the dam.
So how much tension are you like bending the hook shank, like tension, or like, yeah, okay.
Not
Aggressive. But.
Yeah. So the key with mono, right? You can really apply some serious pressure, but in order to do so, you have to have a lot of line out. So if you want to put a lot of pressure, you got to get the distance between your bobbin and the fly, and then you can really cinch on it.
Yeah.
When you're in close like this, it's really just holding it. You can feel when the fibers flare, and generally when you want them, when you have them in place, in this instance, you want to flare them so you can go and apply just steady, but kind of, you can feel it. Go slowly, and the fibers will react. And if you go slowly while holding it, you can either back off and say, oh, I didn't want it to flare like that. So it's almost like a preview of how it's going to work. And all bucktail respond slightly different. So this tail is super soft. It really isn't. I mean, I'd tie this whole fly out of this whole tail.
Yeah.
So some for this front head, using this bottom portion here,
Yeah.
You tend to get like those more hollow
Yep.
type. But I end up using a lot of this too, and your longest length generally is here. So
Mhm.
I end up it for the head with a bulkhead, you figure whatever length you have. If you need that long, if you need this long for the taper, right? And then you look at your tail. Let's see if I can do this backwards. Oh, no, almost. There we go. Oh, my hands are on.
Yeah.
So you see the distance there. It only allows me with this length, probably 3/8 of an inch that I can do in order to have that taper and have that bulk. So with bulkheads, which is kind of a good lead into the next fly, is you have to have that extra length in order to sacrifice it to build up
Yeah.
that bulk, right?
So this is a question somebody brought up, and it's are you, so for all of, is it specific to this fly, or is it true for all of your flies, including the beast? Is there a formula? Like, are you always shortening the bucktail to create the taper, or do you really just start that as a certain point? You know what I mean? Like, just talk a little bit about your thinking behind that.
So it's with beast flies, for instance, it's a little different because you have
Yeah,
length, right?
Yeah.
So you see here, hold on. If you look, you can see the spine through it, right? And it's so sparse. So every half inch or so, you have a tie-in. So by using the same spot of the bucktail or same bucktail tail, or you end up using pretty much the same length, right? So by moving up a half inch, you're subtracting a half inch in end length.
Mm-hmm.
So in that instance, you can use the same length and just step it forward. When you're doing smaller, so just the shank of the hook, you don't have that luxury. So you end up having to eat it, right? So by either cutting it off, which I hate cutting bucktail. So if I can get away with using it somehow, right? Length is gold. So if you find a tail that is long enough, then don't waste it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it's a conclusion that I just came to. Like, I just tied this yesterday, and I realized that I wasn't progressively shortening the bucktail, and so it was a lot harder to achieve that tapered kind of look to it, right? It just and it makes a lot of sense. But like, I think too, Popovics talks about also the taper is also with the angle, right? You can achieve taper by angling.
Yep. So that's kind of the cool thing about the composite loop is you end up, I'll talk about it when we get there, but yeah, you can achieve it by, like on a beast fly, leaving the wraps open more, which is going to consume more because it's not laying back, right? It's laying up. So it really depends what fly. So there's no formula. I do it slightly different than like Bob teaches it, as far as like the distance in the length. I mean, he ends up, from what I've seen, oftentimes towards the head. Let's just leave that out of the way while I'm talking. In the head, I oftentimes see these fibers end up growing, right? So you end up having taper, and then these ones overhang quite a bit, and then it goes into a taper, which I've seen, even like his beast shirt is laid out that way, right? You kind of get that umbrella. I personally like a slightly different. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. But with this one, you can see my front ones are pretty short, right?
Yeah.
And they step up, and then I use hackles, which help with the illusion of taper too, right? So it's not necessarily that, I mean, my bucktail works impeccable. um,
It is.
but you can hide a lot by introducing more tips, right? And
Yeah.
by overlapping those tips, you're creating like a seamless transition. And the more tips, the more movement, the more movement, the more realistic, the more realistic, the more fish you have. It's all about enticing that extra strike, right?
Yeah.
And far too often, almost every single beast you see is just a little too heavy. So going sparse. I mean, I wish I can see if I can like literally.
It's crazy. There's like nothing there.
There's probably 15 strands of bucktail on each collar. Like that's how you achieve the castability of something this big.
I like the guy that taught me how to tie. He always would say is like, whatever you think you need, use half.
Yeah.
And I think that's always a good starting point, right? It's a lot easier to add, very difficult to remove.
Yeah. All right, so I'm pulling that back, and especially on these ones, you can see how it's even, but it didn't fold right back over the not over the mono, right? So in that instance, you wanna, right here, I'm gonna manhandle and use my nail and push it back so that it's up against that mono thread, right?
So what you're saying is that the bucktail sort of folded out in front of the mono a little.
Yeah.
Got it.
And when you use this, oftentimes I'll end up, see how I'm using this to.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was wondering if you use like a stacker or anything, but okay. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
I'll do that essentially, which does the same thing. It pushes it up tight. So that way, when you're building a dam, it's at the end, and it's not like you build a dam and all of a sudden you still have a gap there, right?
Right.
So the key is, and this is the transition, because far too often you end up with a gap, for instance, like right here where you bring your thread through, right? So by leaving it where you did on the furthest forward point before folding it back over, now I can literally, you pull directly forward.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see that. Directly forward, and you can see it's not pulling a single fiber out. And then once it's straight out, you can pull it back over. So now you don't have any gap on the side, which can often lead to a weird side, like, I don't know, weird gap. And then look, there's no thread creating a gap, but because I was manhandling it right here, right? I don't know if that's the right terminology these days. Look, I mean, it's staying how I want it, right? And again, not all bucktail does that, but it's staying where I want it. So with that said, I'm gonna make sure it's where I want it, and then just build up a quick dam. And the beauty of this one, I'm not even gonna go ahead and like build a crazy dam. Like it's really not holding it back. That's just, I built up a half dam, because I'm now gonna take another little snippet of bucktail. And this is where most people are like, don't crowd the eye, don't crowd the eye. And I'm saying, crowd the piss out of the eye. It's the key. I mean, that truly is the key to creating. Use the eye to help push the bucktail back and keep it seated, right? So work your thread right behind the eye, right? So it's right up against there.
Yeah.
That front edge. And you're going to do the same thing, right? So where do I need? It starts. So that's kind of the end. See how it's popping out here? I'm going to pull that slightly in. So you can see that the previous ones ended here, the new one's right here. And it looks abrupt, but you figure it's going to be a quarter of what's here.
Right.
So now I have that. and this is what I told you not to do. So now I have to take that in order to maintain it. And I've learned if I pinch it there, I get the right distance and I flip it over. But if you just saved your time and held it like this,
Yeah.
you would have just saved that whole friggin' Houdini trick. So again, I have like 1/2 inch. So essentially, as I move forward, I want more bulk. So more bulk means longer butt ends, right?
Mhm.
So I'm going to keep pretty much the same 1/2 inch on this one. So I'm going to put that over it, either put it on one side and swing it around, and then pinch the wrap to get it down over the top, and then let go of it. So now you have that around your hook shank. 360. And this is where oftentimes it gets tricky because you have the hook protruding out the sides. So sometimes you're like, well, there's a gap on the sides, like right here, right on either side. But fear not. So move it around. So now take your thread and push it as far forward as you wrap, like right up against the eye. So that is right. There's no, I can't take it any further.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to take this, push it back. It's pretty even like we've been doing. And then when you pull it back, now you got that taper, right? And you got to do the same thing. And on this last one, you can kind of see you end up slightly forward. So right here, see how it comes forward, both top and bottom, out a little bit. So that's the same thing. Just push it back with your finger or whatever till it's even. But there's no room. So now let's use that edge of the high to build the dam, right? So it should be counting. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There. It's 12 wraps and you have a dam that's holding everything back.
Huh.
And that's all you see is 2 wraps of mono for a head.
So for some reason, I have a much harder time getting that angle with as few thread wraps as you're able to do. And I guess I'm also not using mono, so could be that. I don't know if there's any frame of reference there.
One trick I've found, especially on the last one, when you're trying to cinch this last one back behind the eye, if you're using thread, spin it counterclockwise. And then when you pull it around, you're almost creating cordage, right? Instead of the flat, so you're creating a mono cordage, I think.
Right.
And you can almost do the same thing. It compresses it tighter, so you can add those wraps kind of side to side. So you can watch it. It kind of goes side, 3 wraps, and then back over top. And I mean, that took 12 wraps. With thread, that probably would have taken 5,
Oh, yeah.
6.
All right, you're convincing me.
So you can use whatever eye you have. I had a couple jungle cock lying around, so I'm just gonna cinch those in. Really nothing to it. I'll show you that side so you can follow. So lay it where you want it. This one broke off earlier, so I don't have like the feather end, but. And I'll fold these butt ends back over top. There. You got a reverse bulkhead.
Sick, man. Do you ever add flash to those, or do you keep it pretty simple?
No, I really like saltwater angel hair. Well, I like angel hair. Saltwater angel hair is thicker. It's bordering on the too thick that it separates some, but the angel hair adds just a little shimmer, which is really nice. So I end up using that quite a bit. So now what you can do if you want, just to quickly trim it out if you see anything. So let's see if I can get a focus here. Okay. So if you turn it, it's visible to me here, but if you pull the fly back, see, all of these.
Yep.
These are the reversed ones, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
what I'll end up doing, these ones you don't even need to run underwater. They're in the shape they're going to be. They behave pretty well. But oh, there you go. You can see them. But this one, I would probably just go like this. So it softens that edge. There
So you give them a bath?
I'll run some of them under cold water. Hot water causes them to spaz bad. But you can see the bulk that we were going for, right? That'll tame out. And then these are all just crazy movement. So pretty,
Great.
This thing kills it though. Like I said, the bigger flies are niche flies. They're great for herring runs or pogie schools when they're around. But you can't, it's not prospecting. Like if you want to fish ledges, you're throwing smaller stuff, right? Into whitewash. You're trying to, most fish won't hit a bait that big every day, right? So generally they're feeding on big schools, picking them off, or they're just cruising around for easy meals. They're lazy bastards. They really are.
So I got a bunch of questions, and then I'd like to raffle or do the giveaway on that fly. It's like 8, and we might go a little long. So some questions. Okay.
I don't know if people object, so speak up. All I was gonna do, I want to cover the composite section. So yeah. I know some people might be stressed on time. So all I was gonna do is take a 4/0 blue water hook and then add little bucktail like we just did, and then some thin hackles over top, and then we kind of get into the composite loop head. So as you do that, that's what I'm gonna do. For anybody that's following along, I can.
Fortunately, it's being recorded, so we have that going for us.
Yeah.
So one person asked, "Do you use adhesive during your tying much?" So like super glue or anything. It doesn't look like it, but talk a little bit about that.
On beast flies, I do. I like to add some UV just to robust they get beat up so much by big fish chewing on them that, especially with mono, I feel mono flexes better, like on a mono extension. And if you're lashing it down with normal thread, it turns into a stick, I think. So using mono, it allows it to flex a little more, in my opinion. And so I'll add a little UV just on the collar, just around the collar, to prevent it from ripping or breaking when it's just to add a little more robustness. You figure you're either paying good penny for these or you're spending quality time at the vise. You don't want it to break apart. So durability is everything in my book. So
do you ever melt like the tip of the mono extension at the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
See, ever use pheasant or other feather in place of jungle cock?
Yeah, for cheeks and stuff. Yeah, I've done that on some of my mackerel flies. I don't know that they're around, but yeah, I'll use the pheasant cheeks and forget the guinea eyes, or I've used those for like squid flies and but yeah, if I could get my hands on that stuff, I love using it, but generally it's hard to come by. Just like jungle cock. It's a pain to get. And when you get it, generally it's not good. So
yeah. You mentioned the saltwater angel hair. Like, at what point do you tend to tie that into the fly? Are you usually only do on the top half of the fly? Or you, like frequency within the tie-in? Talk a little bit about that.
So for this fly, I would probably put 1 or 2 strands off the back, and then just a couple strands over top of the collars. So you almost get like a layered flashiness, which I think you kind of saw in this one.
So you opt for sparser more frequently as opposed to like heavy-handed, like 1 or 2 spots?
Yes, because I mean, the key and the reason you want to use this stuff is, you start getting into like the hedron, flashaboo, and just most flashes. It's thick and it doesn't blend with bucktail, so you end up with a separate, like it's on top or it separates. I want it to be integrated into my fly. Like if you look at that shimmer, like it's built into it.
Yeah, you can't tell that it's not part of the bucktail.
And you'll break less having it integrated inside. So it's one of those things with bucktail. I think you want to do it. I like sparse, but lay a little over top and as thin as you can as far as flash goes. That's my 2 cents on flash. So I'm using 210 denier, white 210 denier.
Okay.
If I'm not using mono, I'm using that, which makes it easy. Just buy a box of the stuff.
Yeah. So do you want me to ask some questions now, or do you want to hold off for a minute?
No, you can ask questions. I'm just
so yeah, can you elaborate on how to avoid asymmetry while tying the thread dam? I guess it's there's kind of 2 parts to that, right? I mean, there's the tying down of the bucktail, and then there's the actual thread dam itself, right?
Yeah, so you're gonna get to see me do it with thread now.
Yeah.
Too, which will help because most people
easier to see.
Steer away from. That's what happens when I use it.
You're an animal. So so it's interesting. So you normally do like a three wrap and then sort of distribute the bucktail.
Yeah, 2, 3. The rear one, I'm not really distributing it, so I'll
right
on.
Yeah.
All right, let's try that again.
What's your scissors of choice?
I don't have them. If anybody loves them and wants to send me some, I will try them. No, I just picked up a pair of, I'm not gonna remember the name. They're Italian. Pro Maxes, Optima Pro Maxes. I don't know. They're sharp, but
I have 3. I go, 1 is cuts wire, 1 cuts everything, and then 1 only cuts bucktail.
Yeah, that's how I always carry a pair of curved serrated sharp hair, and generally like somewhere around here.
I like the curved. I haven't gotten into the curves yet.
Smaller.
Yeah.
More precision type.
Right.
All right, so little bucktail off the back, and then some hackles. Some, these ones are 7 inches long, and it's from a flat wing saddle. This one in particular, but I'm using the portion of the saddle that I don't know if a lot of people use them, but so like this is I'm grabbing from right along here. So it's right on the edge of where you don't get any of the fluffy stem and just the really thin long ones, right on that edge. So you still get long ones, but with a little of the fuzz.
Right.
So I just, depending on the length, I don't want my tails extending more than like an inch past the bucktail, because then it just looks like a piece of seaweed or something hanging back there.
Someone asked too about the ostrich. Sorry to go back to it, but that's some long ostrich, man. Like, where did you get that? Is it called extra long? Like, I sure as shit don't have anything that long.
Yeah, I know. I found it and bought a bunch of it. Any of you Mainers, they have it up at LL Bean. I'll tell you that much. So for these hackles, what I end up doing, I know flatwing guys end up pulling the fluff down and creating the pillow down here so that it sits. I end up stripping it so it's that. So I still have a stiff backbone to prevent the fouling. But what I'll do is, because this bottom portion is hollow, right? Up until about there, right behind where I want it. So right behind here, I'll pinch it. See how I'm pinching it and it's folding? So then all you have to do is lay it down and fold along that pinch, and she won't move.
Interesting.
For some reason, my bucktail is
Ben, there's a guy named Bob Popovics. He's asking, how do you straighten your mono extensions?
So I have two answers.
Better get it right.
So I have two. I have the one that you guys should use, which you can do. A lot of guys use pens. You'll take anywhere from 60 to, I don't know, 100 pound is general. I go down sometimes 40, but 60 to 100. Start with 100, 125. It's easier to maneuver. But cut some straights. You can buy them from, I've yet to find them, but supposedly you can buy them from tackle shops. They're called straights, but buy some mono and then cut it. Berkeley Big Game you can use, or there's a couple others, but cut them to length, 8 inches long, pack them in tight here, start boiling some water, throw them in the water, let them straighten out, and then quench them under cold water. And then they're pretty straight when they come out that way. There's a couple old school guys up here that use a metal tube, and they'll stretch long. I'm guessing it's how the tackle shops used to do it. Maybe not, but I've had them do it. Eldridge Brothers has done it for me in the past, but they have a long metal tube, and they can, on the caps, they end up pulling the mono out, so they'll stretch it, and then they'll pour boiling water over the top, so the heat ends up doing the same effect, but you can do super long straights of it.
So a few years ago, I was at the Marlboro show, and Bob Popovics gave me a handful of these. It's the last one I've got. I'm not going to use it. Straight from the man himself.
Gold. So that's the way you should do it. I don't do anything.
And there's your answer.
I don't know where it is right now, but I don't know. I'll cut lengths of it, and I've found, and I think it's just practice, if you hold it and as you're wrapping it and spinning your mono around it, if you do it tight enough, as you work your way down, the thread wraps straighten it out for you. So you end up with a memoryless piece of mono, which is, it saved me time. So I've kind of gone that route. But the way you should do it, and what makes it a lot easier, is to straighten them ahead of time.
I'm also really lazy, so I like your approach.
Yeah, I don't know. I've managed to do it. I don't know how effective, normal people. Not saying that I'm, I've just done that particular method quite a bit. So this is the fourth one I'm pinching just to add it on. So I've done 2 kind of tented on the top and then 2 on the side. You can kind of see. So you got that, kind of creates a cool little taper. And I'll cut the butts off. And then I'm going to do 1 hollow tie. So for those of you who want to see that again with real thread, let's do that. So I have some bucktail here. And this is very little.
Yeah.
Very, very little. Probably 20, I'm guessing. And when you look at the taper, I'm going essentially, pretty much slightly shorter, but pretty much where that first bunch I put underneath the tail, that's where I'm putting it. Because when I tie it in now, you can straighten the end of the butts off if you want. Because I'm not necessarily going for bulk back here, but I'll pinch it on the side. I like spinning my thread. So 2, and then I'm just gonna spread it around, right? Man, I like mono. This thread stuff is for the birds.
So are you cinching down? So once you've essentially placed your bucktail 360, are you talk a little bit about the tension at that point? Are you going to spin it, or are you just trying to wrap it with enough tension where it's not moving? Oh, you're keeping your thumb on it. So they're not moving.
You can reef on them. So there's 2 wraps there over top of each other.
Well, do you know what I mean? Where I'm saying if you cinch, it's almost like spinning deer hair, right? It's like, are you just trying to put enough tension on it so it's just staying where you've placed it? It's not, okay.
Yeah. So it started out on top, right?
Yeah.
So I did 2 wraps and I have my down pressure here, right? You can see my vise moving slightly. So then I'll let off enough so I can play with it.
Right.
But it's not moving elsewhere. So I'm just kind of giving this hand a little freedom.
Got it.
Not loose. You always keep it under tension, but just slightly so you can move it around. And then once you have it where you want it, more or less, you can kind of do 1 more locking wrap over the top and towards the front. And then for this part, I'll hold tension on it because oftentimes, depending on the bucktail, it ends up moving. You end up hitting it with your push tool and everything.
We got a little blurry. Can you just put? Oh, all right, it's back. Forget it. You're good.
These Chinese cameras, man. All right, so back where I want it, evenly distributed. Still tension under it, right? So I have 5 wraps on that at this point. I'm going to pull it back. So my fingers, if you can see it, I'm just 1 on top, 2 on the side. You can see my 2, I'm pinching the sides. And then the front, I'm just pulling back. So you create that triangle, inverted or pyramid, and then pull it straight forward and then start lashing it down. So you start back and then I'll move forward slightly and then work back. And you kind of have to watch it because it will slide if you create it too steep. So like I was saying, you got to create that step almost. So just kind of go back on top of it slightly, back on top. So a little more. So this is
what's your tension right now? If you can just, as you are building the dam, and you're starting to come over the bucktail.
I'm holding it tight because I don't want it. I don't want if you build the dam almost like backing. I don't know if you've had this.
I know what you're gonna say. Yeah.
If you load your spool under little tension and then you hook into a big fish and put the drag on,
it's gonna seat itself
deep down in and it tangles to hell. So avoid that. So now we're at the point you could add flash if you want, but I'm going to jump into the composite loop for, right? Let's do it. It's fun.
Do it.
So I'm going to move this aside.
How long does it take you to tie a whole beast? Like when you're really cranking on it?
About an hour, I'd say.
Yeah.
More or less. Hang tight, peeps. This is where it gets well, it's gonna get a little weird now. No.
For some reason, your fancy cameras
On
froze up.
purpose.
Oh,
I didn't want you guys going crazy. All right. So I'm gonna move this out of the way. So somehow I accumulated a bunch of weird stuff.
I didn't know we were going to be in geometry class today, man. I should have did my homework.
Yeah. All right. So here we have it. This is the fun mental. It's all about understanding the theory, I think, because then you can start playing around with it, right? So the way I think of it as we're trying to build that bulk up towards the head of the fly, right? And in order to do so, we're starting back here on that previous fly, right? So as you move forward, you want more of the butt ends, right? Which is what we did on that first fly. So you started out without any of that very short, and then you grow the butt ends, right? So that's what we're gonna do. So if you think of it on your loop, when you start out, this is gonna be towards the rear of the fly because you're gonna tie it first, right? And this is gonna be towards your head. And given the distance on the hook, I mean, I go normally like 5-6 inches, more or less. It compresses some. And what I'm going to do here is, in order to get rid of the need for big bucktail, I know you guys are going to have to look in the small one. All I'm doing is, where my bucktail ended previously, I want my fibers to kind of pick up there, right? So that's where I start here. So this is fuzzy fiber. Here, I'll lay I got fuzzy fiber. I have SF fiber, Steve Ferrara fiber. I have some polar flash. I have multiple types of bucktail. More bucktail if I want. I have, what else do I have? I have some ripple ice fiber, which is pretty cool stuff.
Love that stuff. I'm addicted to it. I don't know why.
I have some ice dub, which in the steelhead composite loop, I don't know why, and I don't even know why I remember it because it's weird, but Jerry French calls it scrim, and I don't even know what scrim means, but it's what he uses to bind, some stoner term, I guess. But you end up putting it binds all of the materials together, right? So you're putting down a thin layer of this, for instance, right?
It's pretty tacky stuff.
Yeah, so
it's straight up dubbing, yeah.
Yeah, so you can do it the way steelhead composite loops are, and they actually sell these cool things for steelhead where they measure out, like, if you're doing a single stage intruder versus a double stage and how long, that kind of stuff. Check it out. OPST has some cool stuff. And I love OPST. Their heads and stuff are fun. Anyways, I digress. So that's why I have ice dub. I have different ripple ice fiber. I have some saltwater angel hair. Really anything you have sitting around, or you're looking to get rid of. So let's start putting this thing together. And it's quick. It's quicker than I'm making it out to be here because I'm talking. But I normally start out by adding some bucktail. So remember, we're going to start out towards the rear of the hook. And the reason I have this line is to show, as you move forward, you want to increase the butt section, so the amount that it hangs over your center line, right? So start out with your bucktail. screw this up. Let's start out right here and then spread it out. Try to make sure that they're parallel to each other and not like interwoven. But the cool thing is you can create some really cool, I don't know if you guys saw, there's a chartreuse one that I did recently, but it transitions to like a crazy chartreuse. There's a pink, crazy purpley one, but you can do it by transitioning in. So I could mix just a little of the chartreuse with the white, and it models it down, and then you can increase or switch colors. I mean, this is one, I don't know if it'll give you the color, but it's pink and yellow, which is pretty cool color combo. This one is the Fleye we're doing, which is blue and has some green in it. And then this is the actual one we're doing right now, which is some chartreuse. But you can see how, you can really get some cool effects. So I'm going to lay some bucktail down, and you can see as I'm going, I'm increasing that butt section. And the thing I learned making bucktail brushes with the main musky mob is really it takes more bucktail. It's hard to overdo the bucktail. It's a weird thing with brushes, but so now let's say that's too short, right? I'm using, oftentimes my colors I'll use up it, or you just get really short, really cool colors, but they're short tails. But I really want that color almost like, or you can make it like a hot core, right? So you can take fuzzy fiber or any fiber. You could use squimpish if you wanted, but so that's of length. So what I'll do is I want that added length back here mostly. So I'm gonna lay this over top of the bucktail. And I should have put the color there so you could see the difference, but oh well. And then spread that out over top. And then I have some of the Steve Farrar, which has the flash blended into it.
Yeah.
And you can add that over top. And then you can add some good stuff. I don't know, get funky with it. Yeah, some gold, some bling in it. Well, you can put some flash in it. I don't know, that's whatever I have lying in that fun. And then what you can do is take, if you want to make it a little easier to spin down, I'm cutting a little more bucktail. You don't have to do this, but lay it over the flash so it's not like crazy sticky. And then I'll take a little of this, it helps me reference where I want to put it in the loop. So you can go kind of pull it, you can't see my hand, kind of pull it apart till you have all the fibers this way for the most part. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just going to piece that along the center line, really thin layer. And all that's going to do is it binds it up.
Yeah.
And you end up losing a lot of it when you pick it out, but it's a binder.
Right.
So that's your tail. That's your head. I said the exact opposite of what I wanted.
It's getting late.
So, let's bring the vise back.
So I got to see how you're transitioning all of that to the loop, because that's.
Okay. Crap. I was going to show you guys first. So I get really lazy and hate it. So this is all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to switch you guys back to the other view, but I'll grab this.
No.
Yeah. Anyway,
wow.
That's what I'm doing. But
all right.
I'm going to pause you so you don't get seasickness. All right, you guys see it? Everything okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do now is, you can use whatever dubbing spinner you make. I made this one years ago, so I kind of like it, but it's just a heavy piece of metal.
Yeah.
the OPST. Somehow I'm like pushing them tonight.
I popped their link into the chat box if people don't know who they are. So
I should get paid for it. I kid. All right. So what I do, and a lot of people, I don't know, I've gotten weird comments about this, but I don't care. So with the 210, I end up pulling it down to the 6 inches with my finger, looping it around, going over top of it once, kind of locks in that length, right?
Mhm.
Then I'll go back down. So I'm double looping this. And it's not always necessary, but really you're putting a lot of pressure when you spin bucktail in order for it to stay. And there's nothing I dislike more than building it up and putting it in just for it to, snap when you're spinning it.
And I don't know if people haven't done this before, like another, I'll say rookie because I've done it a million times, but not, how do we want to say it? Not creating that, the point, like, how do I say this? Like, you don't want your dubbing loop to be hanging over their hook shank because that's too much of a gap. You want to close that gap. Am I describing that correctly? I'm not even sure I'm making sense.
You don't want it in tight here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also, you get in trouble if you try to put your material in like super tight here and then you spin it, because then it'll pull this bucktail in. It'll pull.
Yep.
So sometimes if you have space, I end up starting it like this, and then you spin it parallel to the table.
Yeah.
So it's out away from your materials. So this is sticky. I'm going to put this. I lost track of what camera I was on.
You're good.
And then on the Regal, that's the one nice thing about the Regal. I can sit it right there.
Yeah.
On the bump. And then going back to this hunka chunk of goodness, I'm going to take it, and that ice dub shows me where it needed to go.
Wow.
So if you look, for the most part.
Ben, I wasn't that impressed with you up until now.
I know. It's true. I'm a one-hit wonder. I just keep it under wraps so people don't out-create me.
So did you learn this from Gunner, or did you come up with this on your own? Let's be honest.
Does Gunner do this?
He does shit like this.
I really like Gunner. Gunner, if you ever watch this, I like you. I haven't watched a ton of your stuff, but I don't really, like I said, I tend to learn stuff a lot on my own unless I'm tying with people and pick it up. I'll read some books, but I don't know. I'm more of a doer and learning the hard way. But from what I've seen, he's brilliant as far as like the mechanics behind stuff.
Well, whatever you're doing is working for you, so keep going.
That's what I'm looking like. So you can, at this point, you can literally just like move it where you want it. So you want that down, I want this up. And you can see the length. See how the length gets longer to shorter here? And then I'm going to pinch it right there. I have our pictures. And then I'm just going to hold it so this is tensionless. And if you have one of those fancy, like, I don't know, the pen spinner ones, screw you. But
what do you mean?
This one, they look very easy.
They suck.
Do they?
Yeah, they kind of suck. I regret it.
And then I also get a lot of grief. I got it from my buddy Joe Perez, because I end up picking it out with, I don't have a brush like most fancy people have. So you want to do it until until you create, so everything's perpendicular. And that's where, when you're creating it, if you go too sparse on the bucktail, that's when it starts laying down and rolling with the thread, which if you try this, you'll probably do it the first time. Add more bucktail, even though it seems like a lot. Do it, and making brushes taught me that.
Do you recommend people breaking their thread for the first time they try to do a brush, like just to know what the limit is?
I don't know. It seems like a waste of time to me, but.
Well, I mean, yeah, I hear you, but like there's
until it busts. You know what I mean? Like, if try doing one of these and spinning it to your likeness, and if it breaks, then change it, I guess, would be my tip.
Yeah. There's only 70 people watching us right now, so no big deal.
All right, so we're done up. I'm just gonna push this down, and you can get some water. Helps out. Manhandle it. Just kind of get a so you can palmer it, and then I just grab it, and this is the fun part. So you have that dead spot, right, where it was just thread, that you get one wrap, and then this first wrap is kind of the critical one, because you don't want to go on top of your previous hollow tie. You want to go in front of it, but to create the transition, because now that these are tied in, you have some of the butt ends, right? So it's going to want to flare open. So making sure when you tie this in, so really kind of push your fingers and massage it so it stays flat on this last part, and then pull it around. And then really it's a pretty thick brush, so you can almost end to end it, so you're not like leaving gaps in it.
And you're really guiding it right by the hook shank, so that you're preening it all backward, right? You don't want to capture anything moving forward.
Yeah, I mean,
as little as you can.
It's kind of captured, but all you have to do is that, and you're free. So this is where you start getting that bulk. So start tying it not on top of each other, but really tight. And you start getting
what about small diameter, like stainless wire? Would you use anything like that for your loops?
Not for this. For brushes, sure. I don't know. Thread allows you the freedom, I think, to do it on the fly. So I went like 1/4 inch too long on that one, but it doesn't matter. Just wrap it all the way to the front, like I said on the first one, as far up to the eye as you can, and then just snip the residual off after you cinch it down. So I had a little extra rookie mistake. And then tie back over it, right? And then we'll take scissors, or I have a cool bodkin that I want on Instagram a while back. That's a bamboo fly rod, and and a shotgun handle.
Wow.
From Spinoza Rod Company. It's pretty fancy.
Yeah.
Fancy. So looks kind of crazy right now. So pull it back. You can see though, look at, that's the bulk we were talking about on the the first fly, right?
Yeah.
You're creating that same density, but when you have short bucktail, you need to sacrifice that, and doing it the regular way, it wouldn't be long enough to create the taper. But by adding the synthetic in, you get the length, but you can then move the bucktail up to create this. So you get the bucktail head as if you wanted it, but you also get the taper in the length. So it's this cool way of getting away with not having good bucktail. Because
Yeah.
I hate the thought like people are not getting into tying these things because bucktail, premium bucktail isn't available. And
Right.
Sure, certain applications, but by and large, like, I don't know. I think you can still get away with it.
Do you feel like you're more of a man because you don't use a whip finish tool, or is that like just flexing right now, or what?
Pretty much. Sometimes you just got to show like how to do it.
Those are some soft hands you got there, man. Mine look like shit, dude. I've got like dry COVID hands, like hangnails and shit. I can't.
I've been soaking them for days for this very event.
Buttermilk baths.
Yep. Oatmeal.
There you go.
Yeah, this I don't know. For you guys that are from Maine or from the Northeast, props to you. I will never be okay with winters. It just the body isn't built for it. So this time of year, I started getting cabin fever bad. So luckily fly tying, keeps me.
They say vitamin D helps. I don't know if that's true.
It's true. And normally I would have gone to Florida at least once chasing tarpon. So that last year I had to cancel my trip, and now I thought I was going to be able to go, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go now.
You look like a guy who would just lay in a tanning bed, though. That helps out, I heard, too.
I don't know. I feel like you lose your man card doing that. So the cool thing, look at head on.
Yeah.
Focus. There we go.
There it is.
So it creates that 360 profile. Looks a little crazy. You can trim out a couple, but honestly, this thing fishes all day, all freaking day. And you have that. Look at that taper. Like, it's seamless.
That's amazing.
And you can run it underwater, which will help it. I mean, the nice thing with the synthetic being the same length, it'll blend together. And that's why I like using the fuzzy fiber and the SF. Those ones I've found to work best. The squimpish though works fine. So it's play with it. I mean, I just feel like people need to explore this option if they haven't, because it's really cool, and it just opens up doors, and it helps seeing it done. I posted on my Instagram like a step-by-step, but it's different than seeing it done.
It's impressive. I got a bunch of questions. I actually have one personally that I'm curious about. This never-ending quandary between what looks good to us and what looks good to a fish.
Yeah.
How important do you think it is to, wash the flies and like get them to look good from a taper perspective versus like what it actually looks like in the water? Because there's tension and pressure in the water. And so I'm always curious about like, yeah, it looks great. Like, you spend the time making it look all nice and tapered, but once that thing hits the water, is it naturally going to do that anyway because you've angled the bucktail and all those things, or is it really important to do that step?
I think it really depends on material.
Okay.
So sometimes I think certain bucktails you can get away with not doing it, just like I did with this first fly, right? It's soft enough that it behaves. Especially some of the like longer fiber, stiffer ones. I do think running it underwater and having it kind of take shape, when it dries that way, when you throw it back in the water, it stays that way.
Okay.
It may open up, like, but in current, that's how it's going to stay because the fibers are trained that way. And sure, if you're fishing it on a warm day or fishing it and you dry it up weird, which I end up shoving them in bags, like
Right.
I'll find these beast flies like shoved in my sling pack all the time, and they're all mangled.
Yeah.
They take shape and they hold that way. So you really have to, if you store them improperly, you have to go back through and kind of reshape it. And as far as like having the perfect taper versus, not, or having the perfect profile or not, I think these type of flies, there's nothing else like it on the market, right?
Yeah.
As far as
There's not.
full profile flies, right? That end up being castable on a 9-weight easily, right? That when the fish are keyed in on pogies, when the fish are keyed in on herring, unless in certain situations I've found with flatwings, for instance, in river systems, when the herring are running, their movement and the fact that the fish are seeing it swing through in current, they're looking up most of the time in that situation, it fools them. But if they're chasing bait that has a full body and they're keyed in on that, personally, I've found you got to match. It's not every day. Like, that's what I mean. Is in general, right? Some days they'll eat anything. Other days they get picky. On those picky days, if you want to catch fish, you better have something that looks damn tasty.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my 2 cents. I think, it's not about pretty flies. It's about functional flies. If by perfecting the taper or the shape increases your odds of catching a fish during a specific time of season where you only get one shot, during the fall run, when you're waiting for the fish to start moving and feeding heavily. I've had one afternoon, late August, that's all you get, and then they're gone, like for big fish feeds. And if you don't have that, you may catch one, but generally if they're keyed in on those big ones, why would they bother with something small if they can just sit lazy and chomp down on big bait? So again, it's a niche for big flies. They're niche applications. But I've been seeing more and more down, North Shore, the big fish huddled out there last year, and you needed big. I mean, I saw it, big profiled flies
Totally.
caught the big fish. Hands down, it caught the big fish.
So we've got a bunch of questions, Ben. I also wanted to see if Bob wanted to come on video, but I don't want to put him on the spot if he's not up for it. So I've got some questions about, I put it in the bucket of resiliency, if you would. So do you use any half hitches after each tie? Is that something you get in the habit of doing? No. Okay.
No, like I said, I'll throw some. It's kind of funny. I still have this Clear Cure Goo Hydro, which I loved. I stocked up on that shit way back when, and it was awesome. But the Solares liquid something or other, the really thin one.
Thin.
A little of that over your dam just to prevent it from. That's the thicker one.
No, that's the thin, bro. Come on.
It's called Bone something. Hold on.
Oh.
I'll field questions, but I'm going to pull it out just to show you.
How about when you put eyes on, like your tab eyes, for example? We know this is a hot topic, but I mean, we were talking about this last night. You fold back the tab to keep it secure. Clear camera, if you could. Which one is it?
Bone.
Okay.
Bone something.
Can we bring Bob?
That's like the liquid kind. The blue has
really seeps in. Can you can we put Bob on? Can you if you make me the host, I can pull him up. Or you can do it if you click on his name. I think you can like add him. I don't know how.
I just saw the participant list.
Yeah, so if you can like ask them to come on video.
Did he say it was okay?
That he's here. We're gonna hold him to it.
Can't see them. How do I make?
So if you
back.
So click see my video. If you click on the 3 dots in the corner of like my video, you can make me host and I can pull them up.
Make
and I'll ask.
Change host. Yeah. There. You're free.
Let's see if I can do it. I guess I can allow him to talk. Oh, we can allow him to talk.
Whoa.
I think.
Man.
Partying?
Some tunes.
Hey, Bob.
Oh, how come?
Hey, Bob, how's it going?
You guys seeing me?
No, I guess we can only do, I guess we can't do video, only audio.
Okay, well, that's cool. I don't know anything about Zoom.
That's all right.
I don't either, Bob.
You're doing great.
I'm enjoying this quite a bit, man. And we will talk, my friend, on our Monday night coming up.
Yes. Yeah. I look forward to the feedback, but you know, it's one of those things that, you know, we're constantly trying to find easier ways, right, to make do with our materials. And
it's really, I mean, listen, I haven't tied in over a year, and I must say that when I get up in the morning and I look on Facebook and I see the flies being tied, my goodness, all over the world. Don't forget, that hollow fly is one thing, but the beast, that wasn't even going to be a big part of the book. There was only going to be a picture of it showing you where the hollow fly could go to.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we changed our mind on that. So, hey, I see you guys. There you are.
I stopped sharing my second video.
Okay.
But dude, when I get up in the morning and I see guys signing it all over the world, it just makes me happy as hell.
Can you imagine? Can you ever thought it would be like that? Unreal.
Pardon?
It's unreal. Can you imagine? Did you ever think it would be like that?
No, my God, no. You know, and Ben and I got together a little while ago. Ian Devlin, he introduced us sort of in a roundabout way, and I'm very glad he did. And we have a ball, and we get the inside track. There's reasons, because you know, fly design is one thing, and there's reasons for everything. There really is, and I'm trying to get as much as I can to Ben, as much as I can recall nowadays, but try to get him the inside track into how this started, why it started, why it went in this direction, and why not this direction. So, you know, I'm having an absolute ball watching the guys there. All the tires all over the world are very, very kind to me. I appreciate that big time. And I couldn't wait to start this. I'm in my restaurant right now. And
good for you.
I got running the coast on TV here. I think it's turned off now, but because we're closed up. But
yeah,
it's just I couldn't wait. So I'm glad you guys contacted me. I didn't know we could do this, and I enjoyed very much watching what's going on. And my last question to you was, how durable is that when you're spinning the bucktails? How durable is that? Is that vulnerable to toothy fish or not, to sort of separate that body of that fly or in the future or not? I don't have any experience with that at all.
Yeah, I've between pounding them off rocks and pounding them into fish's mouths, like it depends. I mean, that's why I double up on the loop so you can really cinch down on it.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
So by doing that, it's bound in there, and then it's almost like you have 4 layers of thread holding it down as you wrap, right?
Cool, man. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
You know, just as you got it for the fishermen.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And all due respect, it's nice when you have such perfect alignment to shape whatever. But trust me, the old adage, make it buggy.
yep,
Okay, the buggier, the better they catch fish. Same thing with these beast flies and hollow flies and whatnot. Just remember, it's the tips that move on the fly. And it's the tips that actually, you know, that video I took in Martha's Vineyard of the beast,
Yeah.
and you see it standing still in a current, and then I start to retrieve it. If you look at it,
yeah,
you can watch it, the movement of the fibers go from the front of the fly smoothly back and and that gives you that illusion of it's moving side to side. But in reality, it's the series of tips of those bucktails that make it move. So if we go and we make the one of the beast flies that I'm getting ready to send you, the one you seem to like, that's not the one that I'm sending is not really a good thing. I told you I made it with long bucktail.
yeah,
That means from the eye of the hook, 6 inches back, there's no movement until that series of collar ends. If I instead used 4-inch or 3-inch bucktail in series along that hook shank to create that shape, it's all going to move all the way back. Yes, sir. Perfect. Yeah. Look at the ends where the ends of those bucktails meet. Count them. Count them. Count how many end series there are. That's going to improve your movement in that fly.
Interesting.
That was what was the big deal. Everybody asked me about the bucktail deceiver. Hey, it's nothing more than a deceiver. Well, listen, know this. The first person who ever wrote about the bucktail deceiver, my bucktail deceiver, was Lefty. Lefty wrote it in Saltwater Sportsman. I did the photographs and did some stuff. It was because what it did, it added movement to that fly. Yep. Lefty's collar over that over his deceiver went from the front of the eye, the back of the eye, past the bend of the hook back so that it blended in smoothly. But when I showed him the bucktail deceiver, he went absolutely nuts. And he told me that's the finest non-sinking fly that I ever did. Okay, so it's important to understand those tips of every section of bucktail add to the fishability of that fly. Make them fishy, man.
Yeah. So that's one thing I like about these heads is they're messy. Like they're not
Please,
super.
Sir. That's perfect.
But the other aspect, so you have the tips, right, that you're talking about, Bob. But the other aspect that I've focused on a lot lately, per your instruction, is I've been all about profiled, right? So you look down that one, they're profiled like our bait, right? But one of the things I've steered more towards, if you look at this one, this is a composite loop one, but you look down at it, you get that either conical, kind of triangular, or round, but that's what's causing those tips to kick, right? Because you have that water hydraulic effect.
Forward bulk.
Yeah.
Forward bulk. That's what starts all those currents to roll off the tips of them, and just everything moves. Everything moves. So, dude, wait a minute now. You guys are getting off the subject. You're the man here. I got to tell you, we had such a nice time. We were doing these things so that we would get together on Monday nights. My restaurant closes on Monday nights, so I sit home and I get bored during the day. I'm sitting home all day long. I want to get back to the restaurant. Well, I can't. I close it. Everybody has a day off, and I sit there bored as hell. And then all of a sudden, we get together we text each other every Monday night, and it's becoming a weekly thing. And I try to give him as much. I send him his pictures. I send him pictures of old articles.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking stuff 30 years ago. But I got to tell you,
I feel very blessed, Bob.
dude, we have really something it's very special to me.
Yeah.
And then one time, we've never met.
Yeah.
But one time I hit, what's that, FaceTime by mistake? We couldn't get out of it. And you joined in right away. And all of a sudden now we're talking face to face as if we are here now. So that was really a good time. And I got to tell you, it's just so nice to have a guy who respects what you do and does it so well. So very, very well.
Thanks, Bob.
I'm very thankful, very grateful that you're there and doing it and passing it on. And of course, you know where our message is always being is make sure you teach them well.
Yep.
You know, you put that customer out there first. You need to show him how he can do what you are doing.
Yep.
So I'm very, very proud.
The thing about Ben though is that he's either really inspiring or you just want to throw in the towel, man. I mean, it's one or the other.
Nah, that's okay. I threw my towel in a long time ago, man. It's fine. I'm sitting back now. I can't. You know, everybody asks me. I haven't tied a fly since the Raritan show, the last one. I haven't fished since Martha's Vineyard, the September before the Raritan show. They say, well, you got to go. You should go. I said, listen, I never went fishing to make myself feel better, nor did I ever tie flies to make myself feel better. I could only do those two things when I felt good already.
Yep.
Okay. I can't force anything. And it just seems so strange. But at least at that point, knowing that, I get up in the morning and then there it is on Facebook. Somebody's doing something. And my God, it's like, I love it. I love it.
Wow.
It makes my day. It makes my morning coffee taste better. And I'm just very grateful to that.
I'm looking forward to, we'll have to get down, I'll have to come down and we can do another one down there. And maybe I can drag you out fishing, show me some things.
Well, I'll take you, you'll be in my beach. So you'll be in my truck.
Perfect.
We'll get in the Raptor and go.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining, Bob. This was a treat.
Yeah.
Dude, it's my pleasure. I'm glad it worked out. I've never been on Zoom before.
Me neither.
And now we have a prep. We got to give Paul Dixon the award, Isaac Walton Award on the 11th. But tomorrow we do the Zoom to get ready for it. I've never done it. And luckily it was my waitresses that got this. I'm on my cell phone. So they got me to work. They got me this working and they helped me a lot. So this helps me for the other stuff too.
You're going to be a veteran tomorrow when you need to use Zoom. You'll be teaching everybody else.
Yeah, hell, I'll know my shit. You know, that's okay. But let me tell you, it was such a pleasure to see you. I'm proud of you. I wish you all the best. I know only good things are going to come from you.
Thanks,
and
Bob.
I'm very glad to say that. So both of you guys, I thank you. I don't know if that's what you want. That's all done. Let me know. All right,
Bob.
Bob, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
The right button somewhere.
I got you. I got you covered.
You got me?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I don't even know where we go from here.
I know. I know.
So I'll say this.
People that dropped off, they missed out.
Well, there weren't that many, but we have one question I think is appropriate. Is this what a fly tying, fly fishing boner feels like? Or is this just a lucid wet dream? I think that sums things up right now. Listen, it's late. You know, there's a few questions, but I think like we can go with them at some other point. But I really wanted to try to kind of give away a couple flies. Yeah. It's going to be a little tough, but we'll see if we can make it happen. So we've got 60 people on here. It might take a few tries, but pick a number. Well, actually, how are we going to do this?
Are you able to see who attended?
The problem is I can't do that until we end it. So maybe what we can do is I'll just notify them. So why don't we do it like this? Why don't you just pick two numbers? I'll write them down. Between 1 and 75. I gotta get something to write on, of course. And then I'll notify people afterward. I think it's the only way we're gonna make it happen.
All right, between 1 and 75,
Yeah.
27, 54.
All right. So I'll notify those people. We'll do it on the Instagram and elsewhere, and we'll let them know.
Sick.
Dude, that was awesome, man. Holy shit.
This was a good time.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was
And thanks like even with the camera angle and everything. I mean, that was like so clutch, like very good. Well done.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it, so I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, super useful.
Special thanks to my dad for helping me figure the camera stuff out last night.
All right. Well, let me see. I think we've gotten through everything, man. I'm gonna let you go.
I'll also I haven't figured out where I'm gonna share this. We're recording this, so I'll share it somewhere so the people in Europe, people down in South America, anywhere, people are reaching out to me all over. So I'll figure out where to share it, and you guys can watch this and hopefully learn something. It's a fun technique. Play around with it. I think it just opens so many possibilities. So
definitely. All right. Well, I'm gonna